Galvanized rigid metal conduit, often referred to as RMC, is indeed approved for direct burial in many applications. However, there are several factors to consider to ensure code compliance and the longevity of the installation. The primary concern with direct burial of any metal conduit is corrosion. Galvanized RMC is coated with a layer of zinc, which provides a sacrificial barrier against corrosion. When the zinc corrodes, it protects the underlying steel. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides guidelines for the use of various types of conduit, including galvanized RMC, in different environments. While the NEC doesn't explicitly prohibit direct burial of galvanized RMC, it does emphasize the importance of selecting materials suitable for the specific conditions of the installation. These conditions include soil composition, moisture content, and the presence of corrosive substances. In general, galvanized RMC is considered suitable for direct burial in most soil conditions. However, if the soil is particularly corrosive, additional protection may be required. This could include applying a protective coating to the conduit, such as a paint or tape specifically designed for underground use, or encasing the conduit in concrete. It is important to consult with local electrical inspectors and engineers to determine the best approach for your specific project. The NEC also addresses the issue of grounding and bonding in direct burial applications. When metal conduit is used underground, it must be properly grounded to ensure electrical safety. This typically involves connecting the conduit to a grounding electrode system, such as a ground rod or a grounding ring. The grounding connection must be made in accordance with the NEC requirements. Proper grounding helps to minimize the risk of electrical shock and equipment damage in the event of a fault. When installing galvanized RMC underground, it is also important to consider the depth of burial. The NEC specifies minimum burial depths for different types of wiring and cabling. These depths are intended to protect the wiring from physical damage. The specific burial depth required for galvanized RMC will depend on the voltage of the wiring and the location of the installation. For example, wiring installed under a driveway or parking lot typically requires a greater burial depth than wiring installed in a residential yard. In addition to the NEC, local codes and regulations may also apply to the installation of galvanized RMC. It is important to check with your local building department or electrical inspector to ensure that you are in compliance with all applicable requirements. When making connections to galvanized RMC underground, it is important to use fittings that are specifically designed for direct burial applications. These fittings are typically made of corrosion-resistant materials and are designed to provide a watertight seal. Using the wrong type of fitting can lead to corrosion and electrical problems. Finally, it is important to inspect the galvanized RMC before installation to ensure that it is in good condition. Any damaged or corroded sections of conduit should be replaced. It is also a good idea to clean the conduit before installation to remove any dirt or debris. In summary, galvanized RMC is generally approved for direct burial, provided that certain precautions are taken. These precautions include selecting materials suitable for the soil conditions, properly grounding the conduit, burying the conduit at the appropriate depth, using fittings designed for direct burial, and inspecting the conduit before installation. Always consult with local electrical inspectors and engineers to ensure that your installation is in compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Consider the specific soil conditions at the installation site. Some soils are more corrosive than others, and this can affect the lifespan of the galvanized RMC. If the soil is particularly corrosive, consider using additional protection, such as a protective coating or concrete encasement. Ensure proper grounding and bonding of the conduit system. This is essential for electrical safety and helps to prevent corrosion. Follow the NEC guidelines for grounding and bonding. Maintain adequate burial depth. This helps to protect the conduit from physical damage. Consult the NEC for the required burial depth for your specific application. Use fittings that are designed for direct burial applications. These fittings are typically made of corrosion-resistant materials and provide a watertight seal. Inspect the conduit before installation. Replace any damaged or corroded sections of conduit. Clean the conduit before installation to remove any dirt or debris. Document the installation. Keep records of the materials used, the installation procedures, and any inspections that were performed. This can be helpful for future maintenance and troubleshooting. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that your galvanized RMC installation is safe, reliable, and compliant with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember that the information provided here is for general guidance only. Always consult with qualified professionals for specific advice related to your project. Factors like the presence of de-icing salts in colder climates can significantly increase the rate of corrosion on buried metal conduits. Even though galvanized RMC is approved, in such environments consider alternative conduit materials like PVC or rigid non-metallic conduit or RMC for direct burial. Also, consider the type of backfill material used when burying the conduit. Sharp rocks or debris can damage the conduit coating over time, leading to corrosion. Use a clean backfill material such as sand or fine gravel to protect the conduit. Regularly inspect any exposed portions of the conduit system, such as at the point where it enters a building or transitions above ground. Look for signs of corrosion, such as rust or flaking of the galvanizing. Address any corrosion issues promptly to prevent further damage. When connecting galvanized RMC to other types of conduit or equipment, use compatible fittings and connectors. This will help to prevent galvanic corrosion, which can occur when dissimilar metals are in contact in a wet environment. When pulling wires through the conduit, use a lubricant that is compatible with the conduit material and the wire insulation. This will help to reduce friction and prevent damage to the wires. Consider future maintenance requirements when designing the conduit system. Provide access points for inspection and repair. Also, label the conduit to identify its purpose and routing. If the conduit is installed in an area where it is likely to be disturbed, such as by digging or construction, consider marking its location with warning tape or other means. Consider the environmental impact of your conduit installation. Use sustainable materials and practices whenever possible. Properly dispose of any waste materials generated during the installation. By taking these additional factors into account, you can further enhance the performance and longevity of your galvanized RMC installation. Remember, careful planning, proper installation, and regular maintenance are essential for ensuring the safety and reliability of any electrical system. When using galvanized RMC in coastal areas, the salt air and salt water can accelerate corrosion. In these environments, consider using additional corrosion protection measures, such as applying a marine-grade coating to the conduit. If the galvanized RMC is installed in an area that is subject to stray currents, such as near a railway or a welding shop, consider using cathodic protection to prevent corrosion. Cathodic protection involves applying a small electrical current to the conduit to counteract the effects of the stray currents. When installing galvanized RMC in concrete, be sure to use fittings and connectors that are specifically designed for concrete embedment. These fittings are designed to prevent moisture from entering the conduit system. If the galvanized RMC is used to support heavy equipment or fixtures, be sure to use supports that are adequately sized and properly installed. The support should be designed to withstand the weight of the equipment and the forces of wind and vibration. When installing galvanized RMC in hazardous locations, be sure to use fittings and equipment that are approved for use in those locations. Hazardous locations are areas where there is a risk of explosion or fire due to the presence of flammable gases, vapors, or dusts. If the galvanized RMC is installed in an area where it is exposed to sunlight, consider using a UV-resistant coating to protect the galvanizing from degradation. When working with galvanized RMC, always wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as gloves, safety glasses, and a hard hat. Avoid breathing dust or fumes generated during cutting or welding of the conduit. If you are not familiar with electrical codes and practices, consult with a qualified electrician before installing galvanized RMC. Improper installation can be dangerous and can result in electrical shock, fire, or equipment damage.